What exactly do you believe Hamas has achieved over the last 15 months?
Israel today, after October 7th and after all these 15 months, is not Israel as before. We cannot accept any foreign entity or any foreign force, Arabic forces, Islamic forces, international forces, peacekeeping forces. The main confrontation will be in the West Bank, not in Gaza Strip.
Does Hamas intend to take the fight to the West Bank?
Hamas is intending to defend its people. We cannot fight to improve the conditions of a prison. We are looking to get rid of the prison itself. If the Palestinians cannot reach their goal of an independent state, including Gaza Strip and the West Bank and Jerusalem, no one can enjoy security or stability or prosperity in the region.
Hamas was formed in the late 1980s as a Palestinian resistance movement at the height of the First Intifada. They represented a faction of Palestinians disillusioned by the peace process and seeing armed resistance as the only way towards liberation from Israeli occupation. In 2006, they were voted into power, leading to a bitter internal war with opposition group Fatah, who ended up in control of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, while Hamas remained in the Gaza Strip. In response, Israel placed Gaza under a crippling siege and launched a series of wars in an attempt to unseat Hamas from power, while Hamas's military wing, the Al-Qassam brigades, launched rockets into Israeli cities. Then on October 7th, 2023, Hamas launched a surprise attack, breaking through the siege and killing 1,200 people, including hundreds of Israeli civilians. They also took around 250 Israeli civilians and soldiers hostage, bargaining chips to negotiate the end of the 20-year siege, as well as the release of thousands of Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. But what began on October 7 would become the bloodiest chapter in Palestinian history since 1948, as Israel launched a US-backed war that destroyed much of Gaza, killing over 47,000 Palestinians in what many rights groups have described as genocide. Israel also assassinated 3 of Hamas's senior leaders, including its political chief Ismail Haniyeh and its military chief Yahya Sinwar. 15 months on, and a fragile ceasefire has finally been brokered in Gaza. So what becomes of Hamas? Will the group remain in Gaza, or will they put down their arms and agree to give up control? Welcome to the Big Picture podcast. My name is Mohammed Hassan, and today we speak with senior Hamas official Dr. Basem Naim. Naim was the Minister of Health in Gaza back in 2007 and a Minister for Sports and Youth in the short-lived Palestinian National Unity Government. He is now a member of Hamas's political bureau. Dr. Basem Naim, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Big Picture.
Please, you are welcome also. Thank you very much for contacting us.
This is a particular moment in history that I want to speak to you about the future of Gaza, the future of your organization Hamas, and the future of the Palestinian cause. But let's begin on Sunday with the scenes that everybody saw of the release of the first of the Israeli hostages. This was a particularly important scene because of the optics of it, the significance of it. And we saw the 3 hostages being handed over to the Red Cross, surrounded by dozens of Al-Qassam brigade fighters in uniforms, appearing to celebrate the moment. My question to you is was this a declaration of victory for Hamas?
Thank you very much. Yes, we can say this is a declaration of victory because Netanyahu from day one and his government has raised and declared 3 goals for his aggression against the people in Gaza: to crush the resistance and to end the government or the governance of Hamas in Gaza Strip, plus transfer of most of the Palestinians, if not all of them, outside the Gaza Strip towards Sinai, and lastly, to retrieve the soldiers forcefully. I think it was clear on last Sunday, that he has failed in all the 3 goals. The resistance is still there in dozens, in their uniform, with their new cars. The resistance was able up to the last moment, one day before, to attack the Israeli forces on the ground and to cause a lot of harm to to the soldiers, to the vehicles, and to other capabilities. He failed to retrieve enough his captured Israelis in the Gaza Strip forcefully, and the Palestinian people are still deeply rooted, ready to sacrifice for their existence on their own land in the Gaza Strip. Therefore, yes, it is a historical moment, and we can talk about victory, especially when we compare this imbalance between the two forces. You are talking about one of the strongest armies in the region, or maybe beyond the region, with a small group of fighters in a small, tiny area, 360 square kilometers, besieged for more than 17 years, denied most of the basics of the needs of the people. I'm talking about food and medicine and electricity, freedom of travel and so on. To be able to stand up and to resist and to be steadfast all this time, despite of all these horrific scenes we have witnessed along the last 15 months, yes, this is a victory for the Palestinian people, and this is a clear defeat for the Israeli side. And lastly, I have to say that this is not only our assessment, this is the assessment of a lot of people around the world, but mainly we have heard it clearly in clear words and terms when the Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, resigned 2 days ago, and he said, we have failed on October 7th, and we have failed along the last 15 months. We have failed to predict the operation, we have failed to protect our people, and we have failed also to achieve our goals, which we have declared from the beginning.
This victory for Hamas obviously comes at a huge toll for the people of Gaza in terms of the destruction, near total destruction of Gaza's infrastructure, its hospitals, its schools, its universities, not to mention the civilian toll, which up until now is hard to even calculate the true number of people that have been killed and displaced. What exactly do you believe Hamas has achieved over the last 15 months?
I have first of all to reaffirm some points. When I talk about this toll of losses, especially of people, women, children, elderly, we are talking about more than around 50,000 killed. Most of them, 70% of them are women and children. Around 10 to 15,000 are still missed under the rubble. 120,000 wounded. 20,000 of them are seriously wounded and in urgent need for treatment abroad. Destruction everywhere. Schools, hospitals, mosques, infrastructure, universities. I think Gaza is not livable again at this moment. But here I have to say, first of all, when I'm talking about all these figures, I'm talking about myself, my family. I am based in Gaza. I left Gaza Strip 1 week before October 7th. My family, my children, my brothers, sisters, grandchildren are still in Gaza, and I have lost a lot of my family members, the bigger family and the smaller family. I'm talking about my mother, my grandchildren, and some of my nieces who I have lost during this aggression. Therefore, I'm talking about myself. Second, it is not about Hamas and Israel. It is about the Palestinian people and Israel. Maybe this time, this round of escalation, this round of confrontation is led by Hamas and other factions like Jihad and PFLP and others. But we can remember very well that 20 years ago it was led by Fatah. 50 or 30, 40 years ago it was led by the PFLP, and so on. Palestinians are struggling and fighting now for more than 100 years for their freedom and dignity and self-determination. Therefore, it is not a fight between Hamas and Israel. It is a fight between Palestinians and Israel. Maybe the leadership this round is by Hamas. But back to your question. Okay, it was a very high price. It was very precious prize. We are talking about our brothers and sisters, children, But Palestinians have offered a hand for peace for more than 30 years. What is the result after 30 years? I am talking about Oslo Agreement. Gaza is besieged, totally separated and divided from the West Bank. Most of the land in the West Bank is annexed. Judaization of Jerusalem, serious, very dangerous attempts to change the status quo in Al-Aqsa Mosque, declared goals by the Israelis that there is no space for any political entity between the river and the sea except Israel. And there are plans adopted by the Israeli government, and money is allocated for all these plans, how to declare sovereignty over the West Bank and how to transfer Palestinians out of the West Bank. Therefore, they have said it clearly. Palestinians have one of three choices: either to leave the country, or to be killed, or to accept to live as a slave under the control of the Jewish state. I mean, on one hand, we have tried for years and years to achieve our main national goals by political means or legal means. Unfortunately, Israel, supported by the Western country, mainly the United States, have sabotaged any chance to reach a peaceful settlement of this agreement or political settlements of this agreement. And this is the result. And I have said it many times that October 7th is not, it was an act of defense based on the failure of political track for 30 years or more. It was people who are victims under Israeli oppression, and they are trying to get rid of this siege, of this oppression. Therefore, we have tried to raise a very strong message, or to send a very strong message on October 7th and thereafter, that we cannot be good victims, we cannot be silent victims. We are ready to sacrifice anything to get rid of this open air prison, to get rid of this occupation, and to have our genuine rights of independence and self-sovereignty. And here I have to say, I think you cannot blame the victims, even when there was October 7th, even you cannot blame the victims to be genocided. We went through a lot of confrontation with the Israelis. There is, even during the war, there is international humanitarian law. There is no excuse to attack hospitals, to kill medics, civil defense workers, to kill. In which war in history of mankind, 70% of the people killed in the war are women and children. Usually, men are the vast majority of people killed in wars, and the least number is women and children. But in this case, more than 70% are women and children, therefore, because there was an intention to commit these crimes, this genocide, this starvation, in order to achieve their goals. If you go through history, unfortunately, this is the nature of colonial powers all the times. You have seen it in Vietnam, you have seen it in Algeria, you have seen it in South Africa, and a lot of other countries. The mentality and the nature of colonial powers, that they are savage, they are brutal, and they are not ready to give up unless or you are using the same tools they are using. We have resorted to armed resistance only when all other tools and means have failed.
And I do want to ask you about the future of armed resistance as well. But starting with the practicalities of the ceasefire agreement, there are 42 days in which Israel has agreed on paper to begin the withdrawal of their military infrastructure from Gaza, from all parts of Gaza. Of course, you will be aware of the political conversation in Israel right now, and there are a lot of voices that are saying that Israel should retain its military control of Gaza until Hamas is destroyed. So what does Hamas intend to do if, after the first phase of the ceasefire, Israel has refused to withdraw their military?
You are tackling, this is a very, a question which is tackling different issues at the same time. When it comes directly to the ceasefire agreement, which is composed of 3 phases, phase 1, 2, 3. Each phase is 42 days. The first phase, which we call it the humanitarian phase. After the first phase, immediately we have to talk about, the Israelis have to withdraw all their forces outside the Gaza Strip. I think we have a deal, and this deal was mediated through the Qataris, the Egyptians, and the Americans. We are committed to this deal. We are going to do the maximum we can in order to give this deal a chance to succeed. We are contacting our people on the ground to avoid any obstacles, to overcome any challenges, to facilitate anything which can help this deal to succeed. But if they have other intentions, if they have hidden agendas, as they have said repeatedly that they have taken some promises, hidden promises from the current American administration that they can go to launch the war again and so on. Okay, they can do it. And it is expected that they might violate the deal, and we have seen it lastly in South Lebanon. They are violating the deal on a daily basis. But I can be sure that first, he has failed after 15 months to achieve any of his goals. He has nothing to search in Gaza anymore. What can he do more if he go back again to war? Second, I believe that Israel, the society, the political structure is exhausted. The economy is exhausted. The army is exhausted. Therefore, I don't think that they have the capability to go for an open war again against Gaza. And I think the international atmosphere, the current administration, Trump has said it publicly. I don't want to see any wars again in Gaza. I want to see an end of this war as soon as possible. Therefore, I don't think that they have the excuses or they have the conditions to go for an open war again. But this does not exclude the possibility that they might go for some assassination here or there, or some local attacks here or there. At that time, we have to assess the situation and to study how we are going to respond. But on the other hand, I have to say that I think they have nothing more to search in Gaza. But based on their declared plans and based on declared policies of the new current Trump administration, that the next step is not in the Gaza Strip. The next step in the West Bank. They have declared that the year 2025 is the year of declaring sovereignty over Israeli sovereignty over the West Bank, the annexation of the rest of the West Bank, the undermining of the existence of the PA and the Palestinians in general in the West Bank. Therefore, they have said, and also publicly, a lot of Trump's team have said West Bank is part of Israel. Israel have the right to annex the rest of the so-called Judea and Samaria. Therefore, what we are expecting and what we are now witnessing, that on the second day of signing the agreement on the Gaza Strip, they have launched a big operation against the West Bank. This is what we are expecting. When it comes to Hamas, again, we have said it many times. Hamas is a Palestinian national resistance movement. Our goal is to get rid of the occupation, to help our people to achieve their genuine goals of independence, self-sovereignty, right of return. If we can get it politically, peacefully, through legal approaches, yes, please, this is the preferable way. But if not, we have all the guarantees in the international law to continue armed resistance, because this is guaranteed for all people under occupation to use all the tools to get rid of the occupation using armed resistance. If we get our goals, I mean, if we have an end of this occupation and we have our own state, yes, Hamas, as we have said it many times, will convert itself into a political party, and all these military capabilities and fighters will be integrated in a Palestinian National Army.
Can I ask you about the prisoner exchange deal? We saw already the release of Palestinian prisoners over the weekend, and there is expected to be a second round of negotiations over exactly who some of the more high-profile Palestinian prisoners are going to be. And there's names that have been floated: Ahmed Saadat, Abdullah Barghouti, and maybe the most high-profile of them is Marwan Barghouti, whose name was off the table for as far as the Israelis were concerned in the past, but might be something that Hamas is pushing for. What can you tell me about what names we can expect that Hamas will prioritize in terms of pushing for their release?
We are talking about a deal of 3 phases. In the phase 1, which is the humanitarian phase, from the captured Israelis, 33 will be released. We are talking about women, elderly, sick people, and female soldiers. Lastly, the Israelis have added 9 young men who are most probably soldiers. And there is a so-called terminology, or how for each man or woman or elderly or sick man or sick woman, there is a number of Palestinians prisoners who will be released. We are expecting, because these 33 are fixed as names and as a number, but we are not aware how many of them are still alive and how many of them are dead, because it differs. The number of Palestinian prisoners released encounter for a live Israeli, captured Israeli, compared to a dead body. We are expecting around 240 to 50 Palestinian prisoners who are sentenced for life, and up to 700 Palestinian prisoners in this phase 1, up to 700 Palestinians who are sentenced with high sentences, 20, 30 years and so on. It was negotiated between the parties through the mediators for days and weeks about each name, and there were lists exchanged between the two parties: who can be released here, who can be released there, how many men and women, and so on. Unfortunately, in the first phase, they have said that these big names are not part of the deal. I'm talking about Marwan Barghouti, Ahmed Saadat, and some very famous leaders in Hamas. But we are also expecting that there are a lot of good or very symbolic names who are going to be released in this phase. But these figures, again, like Saadat and Marwan Barghouti, at least in the first phase, they have blacklisted them, and we are expecting to negotiate it again in the second phase, when we talk about releasing the captured Israeli soldiers for more Palestinian prisoners. Now, on the second round, which is expected to be on Saturday, some of the female soldiers will be released. If all of them are released alive, we are expecting around 90 Palestinians who are sentenced for life to be also released. Most of them will be unfortunately deported outside the West Bank and Gaza Strip, most probably to Egypt as a temporary station, and then they might go to other countries. Some of them are deported for a limited time, 3 years, 4 years. Others are deported forever. I mean, they cannot return back to Palestine again. We hope that we can succeed at the end of the deal, at the end of the third phase, that we can, wipe out all the prisons, or to get all Palestinian prisoners free. During this phase, also 1,000 Palestinian prisoners from those who have been captured or kidnapped after October 7th from Gaza will be also released. This was part of the deal, and we hope that the rest can be released in the second phase.
Let's turn now to the West Bank and the current escalations that are happening. We're seeing happening in Jenin, but also over the next 42 days, we are about to enter into the month of Ramadan, and the scenes from that we saw back in 2021 of worshippers in Al-Aqsa compound and the Israeli raids is a potential sight that we might see happen again. There seems to be a lot of tension right now, and there are certainly elements within Israel's government that will want to see those tensions return. What is Hamas preparing to do if Al-Aqsa is raided again? What are they preparing to do with regards to the escalations in the West Bank?
We don't consider that any escalations or confrontation is Gaza. Is it about Gaza? Is it about the siege on Gaza? It is about the Palestinian people in Gaza. By the way, the operation is called Al-Aqsa Flood Operation, which means it is about Al-Aqsa, it is about Al-Quds, Jerusalem, it is about the West Bank. Therefore, we believe that the main confrontation will be in the West Bank, not in Gaza Strip. Because again, the Israelis considering strategically the West Bank, Jerusalem and Al-Aqsa as a de facto annexed area, part of the state of Israel. Therefore, we believe if anyone is seeking to security or stability or prosperity here in the region, they have to tackle this problem, not in the Gaza Strip, in the West Bank. If the Palestinians cannot reach their goal of an independent state, including Gaza Strip and the West Bank and Jerusalem, I think no one can enjoy security or stability or prosperity in the region. Therefore, it is a matter of time to see the next round of escalation. It could be in Gaza again, it could be in the West Bank, it could be in both. It could be in the same way of what we have seen in the Gaza Strip, but it could be in different forms. We might witness the third or fourth intifada. I mean, popular resistance everywhere in each street. And the scene, I am sure it will be very, very complicated, more complicated than the scene in the Gaza Strip.
So the way that you're describing it, it seems to me like what has happened in Gaza, from your eyes, was just the first phase in what could potentially be a much bigger escalation between Hamas, between other Palestinian factions, and with the Israeli government. Is that how you see it?
When it comes to us, we are looking for living in peace and security and prosperity like any other people around the world. But at the same time, we cannot fight to improve the conditions of a prison. We are looking to get rid of the prison itself. We are looking to get rid of the occupation, to have our own independent state. Therefore, it is not we who decide that this is the first phase. They have already decided 67 years that this is the future of Palestinians, to live either under the occupation or to leave the country. And therefore we are defending ourselves. We are reacting to a long-standing occupation. I believe that the situation in the West Bank will be much more complicated than in the Gaza Strip. You are talking about the same geography and the same demography in the same area. You have thousands, around 3 million Palestinians living with 1 million settlers, around 1 million settlers, intermingled. They move in the same area, in the same streets. Therefore, if we will have, or we are going to witness any kind of confrontation or escalation or intifada, or it will be very, very, very brutal, very harsh, and therefore it could be more worse than what we have witnessed in the Gaza Strip. And I'm sure Palestinians, not only in the Gaza Strip, but also in the West Bank, will not accept to be good victims or silent victims, or to leave their country or their land simply because of this Israeli pressure.
One particular element in the West Bank is the presence and the role that the Palestinian Authority has played, and they have been criticized heavily more recently for their role in Jenin, where Palestinians have seen them detaining certain Palestinian individuals and factions and cooperating with Israel when it comes to certain security aims. And the PA has been under increasing skepticism from a lot of Palestinians over the last couple of years. How long do you think the structure like the PA has left before it inevitably collapses?
Unfortunately, I am not used to talk about internal Palestinian issues with any especially international media, because we try to keep it internally Palestinian dialogue or talks. But I have to be very frank with you and honest. Most of the Palestinians, they consider the so-called security operation of the PA in the West Bank, especially in the camp of Jenin, refugee camp of Jenin, is a betrayal. And it is a clear submission to the occupation. They have converted themselves as part of the security plans of the Israelis. How can I understand that at the time the Palestinian security forces are besieging the refugee camp in Jenin, which is very, very strongly symbolic. Everyone knows how long the refugee camp in Jenin is fighting and struggling for freedom against the occupation. How can we understand that the Palestinian security forces are besieging the refugee camp, and at the same time it is attacked from the air by Israeli aircrafts? Again, this is undermining the PA itself. This is undermining and weakening the Palestinian unity and existence, but also it is weakening the capability of Palestinians to stand up to fight against the occupation, against the aggression. Therefore, we have said it publicly that it is condemned. I mean, what the Palestinian PA is doing, it is condemned, and it is not acceptable at all. And also we have said it repeatedly that they are selling themselves illusions if they expect that if they attack their own people or besieging their own people, that they will get more from the Israelis, or that any promises for any current or former American administration that it will help them after the failure of this political track for 30 years, that now they are going to give them more political space or more political sovereignty. We are sure that day after day they are losing their credibility, they are losing their support on the ground, and I can expect that at the end of this year, because this was also declared by some ministers in the Israeli Knesset, in the Israeli cabinet, that at the end of this year we might see the PA is leaving or disappearing.
And that obviously leaves a huge power vacuum, not just in the West Bank, but in any conversation that is currently happening about the future of leadership in Gaza and Hamas. And I know you yourself have said that Hamas is willing to step aside politically in Gaza, though not militarily. I'm wondering, what is the military aims of Hamas going forward if they aren't necessarily in charge in Gaza?
Hamas, first, on one side, Hamas is a big movement representing vast majority of the Palestinians, not only in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank and in the diaspora, have a lot of other activities than to be a military movement. We have the educational activities, social activities, religious activities, and a lot of other political and diplomatic activities and relationship. Therefore, it is not only about military activities and military goal. Second, we are an elected movement. We were elected in 2006 by the vast majority of Palestinians, but based on this election, when we won the majority, we were blocked, isolated, and banished. Unfortunately, this isolation was partially implemented or imposed on us by the PA in Ramallah. Therefore, when it comes to the daily life in Gaza, we have asked and worked for months during the last 15 months to negotiate or to talk between the Palestinians with all factions, including Fatah, to form a Palestinian unity government or a Palestinian technocratic government to run Gaza Strip and the West Bank for a limited time and to have very limited, well-defined tasks to rebuild Gaza Strip, to reunite the institutions and the ministries, and to prepare for public or for elections, comprehensive, fair and transparent elections. Unfortunately, this has been blocked by the PA in Ramallah. Then we have received the Egyptian proposal to have a body to run the situation in the Gaza Strip temporarily, everything, education and health and social affairs and so on, formed of 10 to 15 technocratic Palestinians, Gazans, who are not affiliated to any faction. And this has also, unfortunately, despite of the it was an Egyptian proposal supported by all Arab countries and Islamic countries and some European countries. It has also blocked by the PA in Ramallah. Therefore, we are still in negotiations or talks with the Egyptians how to continue, how to get or how to form or how to be creative to have a body which is running the Gaza Strip without being affiliated to any faction, mainly Hamas. We are not eager to be part of any government. We have said it many times, and we have handed over the government in 2014, and we have repeated this in 2017. We consider ourselves as a national resistance movement. I mean, being in the government, this is not a main goal for us. But if all this fails, if all these proposals fail, we are not going to give up our duties, our obligations towards our people to continue running the Gaza Strip when it comes to the civil life. I can reassure you that on the first day after the ceasefire agreement, all our brothers and sisters, I'm talking about the employees in the health sector, in the education, they have started to look after their duties toward their own people, how to contact the patients, how to contact the schools and so on. Even policemen, yesterday we have read that around 6,000 policemen in their uniform, they were distributed everywhere in the Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, in the street, to control the situation, to control the aid, to secure a fair and distribution of all these aid coming into Gaza. Therefore, if all these possibilities fail, we have to do our jobs or to be committed to our duties to our and responsibility towards our people. We cannot leave Gaza for chaos and for some people to create security problems or inside the Gaza after the ceasefire deal.
One of the proposals that has been floated that the U.S. supports, that parts of Israel supports, is the idea of having an international or a regional coalition of powers that takes over control of Gaza. And specifically, this is a scenario that does not involve Hamas or arguably, any Palestinian leadership in Gaza in particular. Is this something, if it came to it, would Hamas support this proposal?
We have said it, that we are not eager to be part of any government, and we are ready to hand it over to any Palestinian body supported by all Palestinian factions. Second, we have said it from the beginning, the day after the ceasefire, after ending this aggression, it has to be a Palestinian day, and Palestinians are mature enough to decide for themselves. Why should anyone decide for us how to do what to do? We are not deciding for Jordan or for UK or for any country what to do, when to do, how to do. Palestinians are clever enough, smart enough, mature enough to decide for themselves. Therefore, we cannot accept any foreign entity or any foreign force, regardless of its name, of its composition, Arabic forces, Islamic forces, international forces, peacekeeping forces. And we have said it. Why should any kind of forces come to Gaza? To protect the occupation or to protect us? If we are in need for a protection, why not in the West Bank? To protect Palestinians from the daily aggressions of the settlers. Why not in Jerusalem? Why not to forces to implement the UN resolutions regarding the Palestinian question since 1948? Why it is only a buffer zone to protect or to secure the Israeli security? Therefore, we have said that we cannot accept any kind of forces, and we are going to consider them as enemies.
The Donald Trump administration has just entered into government once again, and the last time they were in office, one of the lasting legacies that they had in the region was, of course, the Abraham Accords, the normalization deals between Israel and several Arab countries. It was something that was highlighted specifically by Hamas as part of the reasons for the launching of the attack on October 7th. Now that Trump is back in office and now that there's a ceasefire deal, do you think those talks will restart? In particular, the conversations around normalizing between Israel and the Saudi government?
They can start anything. They can initiate any proposal, any process. But I am a surgeon, professional. I am a doctor. The first step of any successful process is to diagnose the disease. You can give the patient all kind of medicine. It might relieve him for a while, but it doesn't solve the problem. We have a clear problem here. The Israeli occupation. Palestinians, after 76 years, have all the right to have their own state, independent state, self-sovereign state, the right of return. Without solving this root question, all initiatives, all other processes will lead to nothing except postponing or the next round of escalation. Again, October 7th was a matter of time to see it, because we have seen great efforts were done, invested in undermining the Palestinian existence, in undermining the Palestinian rights, and to overcome the Palestinian question by going directly to normalize the relationship with Arabic countries or to integrate Israel into the region without solving the Palestinian problem. And Netanyahu has said, why not to consider the Palestinian question as any internal problem like a lot of other countries who have some minorities and they have to deal with them without considering Palestinians as an independent entity for itself. Therefore, okay, they might be able sooner or later to launch the so-called normalization process or to continue the process of Abraham Accords, but I can reassure you it will fail. Without ending the occupation, without giving the Palestinians their rights of independent states and the right of return, without stopping this Israeli mentality to be offensive and aggressive against, not only against the Palestinians. We see what they are doing in Lebanon, what they are doing in Syria, what they have done in the Red Sea, in Yemen, everywhere. Therefore, again, without undermining this occupation, without ending this occupation, it is a matter of time to see the next round of escalation. I hope that Trump can bring peace and stability and security to the region. But this has to be built on a solid basis, which is mainly ending the occupation. But what I hear every now and then in the media, it reflects that they are not understanding very well, in depth, the complexity here in the region, the mosaic of the conflicts here. It is, look, Jerusalem, Al-Quds, maybe a few square kilometers. You cannot say that we can, okay, why not we take Jerusalem, Al-Quds, and we give the Palestinians, instead of 10 square kilometers, 100 square kilometer in Negev or in Sinai. It is not about amount, about figures. Jerusalem and Al-Quds, Al-Aqsa, is the third holiest shrine in Islam. This is the most holiest mosque for 1.4 billion Muslims around the world. Therefore, if they don't understand the depth of this conflict, the religious aspect, the historical aspect, the demography of the region, I think it is a matter of time to see the next round of escalation.
And speaking of those escalations, the last 15 months has been a domino effect on the region, and a lot has changed. And you mentioned Syria, of course, the collapse of the Assad regime there, and the success of the rebel groups, and in particular Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. There's been a lot of questions over what their relationship will be to Palestinian groups and to Hamas in particular. How does Hamas view this new government in Syria? Do they view them as allies, or do they view them as a stumbling block in what used to be, an axis of resistance that was in support of Hamas?
We have expressed publicly our happiness to see Syrian people getting their freedom finally, after paying a very high price, more than 650,000 people killed, 200 still missed, 12 million refugees. It was a very big price to get rid of a dictatorship. But at the same time, our policy is clear. We are not part of any internal disputes or conflicts, and we are not part of any bilateral conflicts between two countries or two axes here in the region. Our main cause is the Palestinian cause. Therefore, we are asking everyone to support us to achieve our goals. Our compass is directed to Al-Aqsa, to Jerusalem. We are welcoming any kind of support. Some countries have supported us politically in the UN Security Council, in the UN General Assembly, public statements. Some countries have supported us financially by supporting civil activities or other activities. Some other countries like Iran, they have supported us at the military level, weapons, equipment, training, and so on. But again, we are welcoming any support in the direction of Palestine to get rid of the occupation. We are not part of any conflicts. What we are wishing for Syria is that Syria to be united. We don't hope that we see divisions or that Syria is divided, and that all Syrians can take part in the future of building the future of Syria. And lastly, that Syria continue to stay behind Palestine, behind the Palestinian rights, as it was for decades, even before the Assad regimes.
And how do you feel that over the last 15 months, the Palestinian cause itself, the issue of Palestinian resistance, has changed?
This is a good question when it comes, what did we benefit from all what happened during the last 15 months? Because most of the people have concentrated on what happened in Gaza, the devastation, killing of thousands of people, destruction and so on. And yes, they have the right to do it. But at the same time, I think strategically we have achieved a lot. Look, first of all, Israel have presented itself for decades that it is the country, the most civilized, the most democratic country in the region, representing the Western values of democracy and the human rights, and so on and so on. I think this is not anymore valid in the eyes of millions of people around the world, especially in the West. Israel became maybe slowly a burden for its allies by this rogue behavior, behaving as a state above the law. Israel failed to secure. Israel was always claiming that they are the most secure place for any Jew around the world. They have failed to defend their own people on the ground. The media narrative, I think millions of people around the world, they were not aware about the reality on the ground. They have always taken their narrative from the Western media, which was manipulated and sometimes fabricated by the Zionist lobbies in the media in the West, so that a lot of people around the world, they don't have any sense to the reality here. And now they have seen it by their own eyes live, how the Israeli behaving. Yesterday I have heard one of the most famous journalists, and he is also a religious man in the Israeli TVs, how he is describing proudly how many houses he was destroying every day, how many people he has killed. Therefore, when it comes to the narrative, when it comes to the image of Israel, when it comes to the legal aspect, for the first time in history of this conflict, Israeli leaderships are considered accountable for genocide and for war crimes and crimes against humanity in the ICG, in the ICC, in the UN General Assembly. For the first time, a vast majority based on the ICG consultancy decision in the UN General Assembly, they have said it clearly. This is an occupation which has to end immediately. I think the image of watching the Israeli UN representative shredding the UN Charter in front of the whole world, the Israel is forgetting that Israel, without a UN decision, they were not able to be a state. This is the only state around the world which has been created in the UN, and it was created by the UN. Therefore, without the UN, Israel has no right to exist, by the way. And the same UN who gave Israel the right to exist also gave the Palestinians the right to have their own state, an independent state. The same UN who has given the Palestinians the right of return to our houses and homes we have forcefully displaced from 67 years ago. Therefore, I think when it comes to the strategic elements of this conflict, I believe that the Palestinians have won a lot. Israel today, after October 7th and after all these 15 months, is not Israel as before. Lastly, I have to say that before October 7th, we have observed and witnessed a lot of internal division inside Israel, internal divisions inside Israel, legally, in the military, in the security, in the media, in the Knesset, everywhere. I think that all these disputes and divisions have been deepened after October 7th and after the war in Gaza, and maybe we might witness soon how much internally these conflicts will escalate, and it could lead to a civil war. It could lead to collapses here and there. Again, Israel today is not Israel which was before October 7th.
Finally, Dr. Basem, if we can bring our conversation to Hamas and the future of Hamas. We spoke earlier about the show of defiance that we saw on Sunday, that the Israeli government failed in its attempts to try and destroy Hamas in terms of its infrastructure, but as an organization. but certainly Hamas has suffered a tremendous amount of losses, whether, in terms of the civilian infrastructure that you described, government infrastructure on the ground in Gaza, but also militarily, but more specifically in terms of its leadership. And of course, the two primary, most high-profile people, whether it was Yahya Sinwar or Ismail Haniyeh, were assassinated by Israel during that course of time. What does Hamas look like today? What is left of it as an organization, but also who leads it forward from today?
Yes, I agree. Like our people, we have received a very strong strike against our military capabilities, our leadership, top leadership figures were assassinated or killed inside Gaza. But I have also to say that Hamas is not present only in the Gaza Strip. It is also present in the West Bank and in the diaspora. Hamas is not a small group of young people who carry Kalashnikovs. No, we are talking about a very big, well-organized, well-institutionalized movement, and we have all these administrative capabilities to see how can we cope with all these losses and new changes. After the assassination of the leadership, we have immediately we sat together and we have decided how to move forward. After the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, we have chosen Yahya Sinwar. After the assassination or killing of Yahya Sinwar, we have formed a cabinet of 5 leaders representing all the areas, Gaza, the West Bank, and the diaspora, and the top leadership. And this cabinet of 5 people is now leading the movement, and it will continue leading the movement until the situation is more calm and settled down in the Gaza Strip and somewhere maybe also in the West Bank, so that we can go back to the original form or the original picture, or to choose our top leaderships in all positions. Because now I think it is extremely difficult and it's extremely dangerous, by the way, to collect the people and to go for election. By the way, Hamas is the only Palestinian movement which is committed to democracy, and we are running internal election each 4 years regularly without any delay to choose our leadership. But today we are the movement is functioning okay. It is under a huge pressure because of Gaza, but in all other areas the movement is functioning as before. Now about the long-term future, again, Hamas is a Palestinian national resistance movement. Our goal is to resist the occupation, to get rid of the occupation, and to reach an independent Palestinian state. If we reach it, if we get rid of the occupation, we are ready to convert ourselves to a political party and to integrate our forces into the Palestinian National Army. And at the individual level, I am sure originally I am a doctor, I'm a physician, I'm a surgeon. Maybe there will be a chance to go back to do my original job as a doctor in one of our hospitals or in one of our clinics. And most of our leaders have their own job as doctors or engineers or academics or teachers at universities. Therefore, again, it is our main job is how to help our people to get rid of the occupation. Then we are looking forward to live like any people around the world in peace with our children, to secure a better future for our families and our children.
I have to ask you before you go, you mentioned a lot about the escalations in the West Bank and what you expect to be further conflicts in the future. If the ceasefire in Gaza holds through all 3 phases and the fighting, what we saw, the destruction, reaches a sort of momentary pause, does Hamas intend to take the fight to the West Bank?
Hamas is not intending to take the fight in the West Bank. Hamas is intending to defend its people against the daily 24 hours, 7 days a week aggressions of the settlers and of the Israeli soldiers against our people. We have witnessed for months before October 7th how settlers are burning our houses, how they are between 2000 and 2023, 20,000 Palestinians killed on checkpoints, in prisons, in Gaza. Therefore, we are defending ourselves. And if we reach a ceasefire here, it doesn't mean, first of all, that Gaza has reached its goal. By the way, even if we have reached a ceasefire, but Gaza is still besieged from the ground, from the air, and from the sea. It means that Gaza is still occupied. And this is the legal definition of the situation in Gaza Strip. Gaza is an occupied territory like the West Bank, therefore, sure, we are going to continue struggling for our freedom and getting rid of the occupation. Now, if the Israelis try to think rationally and decide to give the Palestinians the chance to have their own state, I'm sure they will spare the lives of thousands of people who might be lost during any coming confrontation. But this is their decision. I don't believe they are going to do it. I am sure that the shift in the Israeli society to the right and to the extreme right, even up to the fascist phenomena we are observing today, that this is irreversible, and they have succeeded slowly to convert this conflict from a political conflict about borders, about people, about statehood, into a religious conflict. We have seen and we have watched and we have heard all the politicians, ministers, prime minister, even the president, Knesset members, who are reciting phrases in the Torah and Talmud while they were attacking Gaza Strip. They are converting this into a religious conflict, which means it will be a conflict beyond the Palestinian borders, and they are going to invite maybe 1.45 billion Muslims to participate in this conflict. Therefore, it depends on the Palestinians, it depends on the supporters of Israel, it depends on the international community, finally to take a serious step, a serious action to end this behavior of Israel as a rogue state, as a state above the law, and to end this occupation and to give the chance for the region to live in stability and security and prosperity, and the Palestinian people in their own independent state have a chance to participate in doing well for the humanity around the region and around the world.
Dr. Basem Naim, I greatly appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Please, thank you very much.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Big Picture, and thank you to Basem Naim for being our guest today. As always, we want to hear what you have to say about this conversation, so please leave your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, you can find this and all of our conversations in audio format wherever you get your podcasts from. And until next time, I'm Muhammad Hassan. Salam.